So what I was saying is we have lost maybe the first layer, which is having the crime scene as it was. Sorry, having the disaster scene, my apologies, as it was when the incident happened. So you see what we are now doing right now is what we call the crowdsourced evidence recovery, which is what the Ashanti Regional Minister is doing. When you lose the first phase of the disaster scene, which you need to do an accurate forensic investigation, there is also another layer, and which is the crowdsourced evidence recovery, where you look at those who rushed to the scenes and picked a few of the debris, and if they could return it, all those are going to help us in our investigations. But let me say, investigations like this, forensic experts need to be able to see the scene as it was when the incident occurred, because forensic investigations is like reconstructing the story, just to be able to link the points. And then at the end of the day, when a forensic expert, we get to the scene, looking at the positions, the angle, and even how everything is placed in the disaster scene, you're able to tell a story. But in this case, we've lost that. So we are now using the second or the alternative approach, which is the crowdsourced evidence recovery, trying to get most of the things that the residents have picked. And when this happens, of course, we have what we call the debris field geometry, right? So debris field geometry, you basically would see that when you get to the crime scene, based on the positions of every debris in the place, the geometry tells you a story of the scatter pattern, in this case, of the unfortunate incidents we have. Things have been moved. I've seen videos where residents were carrying some of the parts. That even makes you lose more of trace evidence. And of course, the other key portion is this: we have what we call the avionic models. The avionic models are just building blocks of an aircraft, be it the aeroplane or the helicopter. This, it can tell you a lot about the communication system, the tracking system, some of the electronic systems of the aircraft. Once again, if residents picked some of this, they need to get all this back, because all this needs to be put together in addition to the scene of the disaster to help tell a better story.
I see. Now, you talk about bringing all of that together. Here's where the challenge is. Now, they have been moved from the original location when this disaster occurred. So that's a challenge already that has been created. How can that be remedied?
Oh, so yeah, there are different layers of the investigation. You can also rely on digital forensics. Over here, you look at flight tracking, the recordings and audio, if you can retrieve some of that. That's why I mentioned the avionic models. Some of the parts people picked, most of them would always contain recordings and then pieces of electronic information, where forensic scientists can retrieve bits of digital information that when they put together, it can also tell them something. Maybe before the final phase of the disaster took place, a lot of communications had gone on. The pilots and the people inside had made certain calls. That is where we look at the digital forensics. You want to look at, maybe let's say it started like 15 minutes before the incident finally happened. Most would have made certain calls, and you want to trace all this. So apart from just relying on the crime scene data, which you want to construct the debris field geometry to build your story as a forensic specialist or analyst, there is also another layer for you if this has been contaminated, as it has been in this case, or as it is in this case, using digital forensics.
I see. Now, there's another bit about the eyewitness reports as well, because we've seen different forms of, or different aspects of this crash when it comes to the eyewitness accounts. You've had the dominant one being that a number of the residents said they had this, or they saw this helicopter fly at a very low altitude. Others, we had another narrative of it possibly, blasting in the air before anything happened. How do you corroborate all of that together to ensure that you sieve the wheat from the chaff and that you are working with an eyewitness account that is credible?
Thank you, Alfred. As well, I believe when you get to the scene as a forensic analyst, so if you look at this kind of disasters, you would be able, that is why I said the key thing we needed here was the basic particles and debris in the field should have been where they are. Now, the distance of one debris to the other, how far it flew or it scattered, tells a story. But I believe they were able to pick some of them, and forensic experts can put that together. Now, if a plane crash, I'm not an expert when it comes to this flight stuff, but if a plane crashed and then if a plane if the helicopter was attacked and then it exploded in the air, the story from a forensic expert is going to be different because there is what to look for when a plane crashes and there is what to look for when it probably exploded in the air before getting down. Now, President had mentioned, and I've also seen that in some of the videos on social media, that it was flying low before. I know they can always fly low, but not as low as the tallest tree. So maybe something could have maybe caused them to even be that low before that incident happened. But I think the strong or the big evidence or the big layer here that they can use to help themselves with investigations would be to rely on digital forensics to see all those who were on the flight, did they make certain communications prior to this happening? If they did, they would have communicated with people or they tried to leave certain informations and then all that. I'm seeing something circulating that one of them had made a call. I don't know how true it is. So we can rely on digital.
Which is key. Very, very key. And you keep referencing the digital footprints and then also all the others that can be leveraged in this instance as well. Then the question will be whether those digital installations are there and available or were in place before this crash as well. That's going to be absolutely, and that's going to be the next phase of the conversation. But I do appreciate you for this preliminary information that you put across as to where the forensic scientist will also be looking at. The aspect of this conversation you'll be looking at beyond just establishing the DNA, which is the medical forensics. There's also, right, Jonathan, there's also another forensics that would have to take place at the crash site. So what has just happened is just establishing the DNA and identifying the people. There's another aspect of forensics that will have to take place at the crash site, correct? Sorry, I lost him. We'll continue this conversation. Jonathan Awewomom is a forensic science PhD candidate in the Florida International University, a former senior staff at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, joining us from Miami, also monitoring the events back home. Thank you so much for joining us here